So, you and I are writers. The iPad is great for writers, and Apple has just brought out new iPads. Let's play our game. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones, and this time very definitely also on iPads. Do subscribe because and tap the bell thing. I like the bell thing because we always have so much to talk about, maybe never more so than when there are new devices. This time though, we could go deep into the weeds talking about the specifications of new and different iPads, the minutiae of, I don't know, processor speeds or the color of something. Yeah, because for once, your reason to buy one of the new iPads could come down to some pretty fine decisions where that sort of detail might swing it one way or another. But let's work to that. Let's you and I take a step back and look at the whole range as it stands now, the new and the old iPads together, because there I think we can do something more useful. There, I think this is where you and I can talk about what we would use iPads for as writers, what iPads are good for writers, and then I think that is how we will get somewhere. So let me say first, though, two things actually. First, all iPads are really good for writers. I mean, seriously good. And none of the new iPads introduced this week are so good, are so different that they are worth buying if you already have last year's iPad models, or possibly even the year before that, maybe. Just quickly, by the way, that's an iPad. Now 7 years old and ridiculously useful to me as a kind of wall dashboard thing. And actually, this is an iPad. Hang on, let me show you. That got confusing. I'm using it as a monitor for when I'm talking to you. I comb my hair. You can't tell. 7 years on, I still take that iPad off the wall and bring it with me when I'm running workshops. And the monitor iPad, it's a constant companion. I mean, I read on it, I watch films, I do more reading, and I also write, and write, and write. An iPad can do, I counted this, 11 billion things, and do, I think, pretty much all of them very well. All of this in like a slice of glass. It is incredible, I think, and it keeps feeling incredible. I keep being reminded just how great these things are, and especially when Apple brings out new ones. This week, Apple really, as I record this October 2022, Apple has just released a new regular iPad, like a base iPad, if you like, and two top-end iPad Pro models. Broadly speaking, the difference between the base and the Pro ones, apart from a lot of money, is that the Pro ones always have better screens, they're always faster, they're always more capable, as in what you can connect to them and what you can connect them to. And I would say that means they have a longer useful life. I mean, all iPads last very many years. Apple has trouble sometimes getting people to upgrade because it's still fine. But I think the Pro ones have the longest life. They last you the most. Both of mine, by the way, they're iPad Pro, for instance. And what has changed with the new iPad Pro models is that they now run on the M2 processor instead of the M1. You instantly see the difference. Apple says, well, absolutely lots of different figures, but kind of 20% faster in some cases. I think you'd notice the speed difference right away if you move from one to the other. I'm certain, actually, that you would notice it over time as you really worked that iPad Pro. Otherwise, the new 11-inch iPad Pro and the new 12.9-inch iPad Pro, well, actually, they're the same as last year's models. In fact, they replace last year's models. You can now only buy these new ones. So they are now your choice if, well, let me see. If you need to do work that really stretches any device, like music or video editing, science, engineering, or if you want your iPad to be your only or your main device, and you want to do all this and have it like that, be like that for years, well, then iPad Pro. The new iPad Pro is excellent. But I have last year's 11-inch iPad Pro, and I'm not budging. One of the reasons actually that I bought it was that I wanted it to last me for very many years. But actually this time, not even tempted by the new one. And also I should say, since I do have an iPad Pro, I'm not tempted by the new cheaper base iPad. But actually, for us as writers, well, that's where the action is this time. The new regular iPad, which Apple calls the 10th generation iPad, well, it has a new design. It's got like squared off edges instead of the old curvier one, which actually does make it nicer to hold. And I know that, I can tell you that with such certainty, because it's the same design that the iPad Pro ones have had for a while, also the iPad Air. And the new iPad has also gone fullish screen. Instead of losing space to the old home button, which has now moved to the top, the new iPad, it's a much bigger screen in a case that's only fractionally bigger. The case, the chassis, is 2 millimeters longer on one side, 5 millimeters wider on the other side, and the screen consequently has been able to grow from 10.2 to 10.9 inches. And as I say that, I've only just realized that I'm mixing units, aren't I? Millimeters and inches. That's actually a really British thing to do. I hadn't thought of that. Anyway, 10.2 to 10.9, it doesn't sound a lot, but it really is. As ever, that's like the digital, that's a diagonal measurement. And this is the thing you will really notice if you were to move from the old iPad to the new. Other than that, the new iPad, it's faster because it has a newer processor, but it's not the same. It's not the M2 or the M1. It's actually the same processor that was in the iPhone 12 from about 2 years ago. So knocking on a bit already. The new iPad, it now charges with USB-C instead of the old Lightning thing, which is apparently better and faster, but I just plug these things into charge overnight. So yeah, I don't notice. I'm not fussed. USB-C can also let you connect a wider range of devices to your iPad, but actually I'm not clear yet what Apple's new base iPad will or won't take. And there's also this, though, this is key for us. Apple has brought out a new keyboard to go along with this new iPad. You and I spent a lot of time at keyboard. We know from keyboards. So this is significant. Significant but also separate. It is a separate purchase and it is not cheap. But what's significant, I think, is that this new Magic Keyboard Folio only works with this new base iPad, the 10th generation one. So on the one hand, this new iPad won't use the same Magic Keyboard for iPad that I have on my 11-inch iPad Pro, and that can also be used with the mid-range iPad Air. And it can't, if you change iPads later on, you might well have to also change keyboards. Just makes it more and more expensive. So actually equally, if you have the old iPad, the 9th generation one, and you bought Apple's smart keyboard for that, it looks like that won't work with the new 10th generation one. I can't see why not, but the Apple Store listings say so, and they would know better than I would. So, yeah. I've got to say this: you always be able to buy a completely separate external keyboard, and that's going to work with any iPad. So you can buy that and keep that. Also, if you tend to draw or somehow your handwriting is good enough, better than when you type, well, the new iPad works with the first generation Apple Pencil. The new 10th generation iPad, it has a better screen as well as a bigger one. I don't think you'd notice that difference unless you put the 10th generation iPad down right next to the 9th. But, well, actually you could do that. I mean, don't. It's not worth the money for an experiment that's going to take you, 2 seconds. But while the new iPad Pro models have replaced the old ones, the new 10th generation iPad has not replaced the ninth. Apple is still selling the ninth generation iPad. And for all that I really like the bigger and the better screen on the new one, maybe the best feature of the new 10th generation iPad is that it makes the price of the ninth generation one rather appealing. The new 10th generation iPad starts at $449 or £499, good old UK economy. The ninth generation iPad costs $329 or £369, so that's $120 or £130 less. Looking at the details of the two, I know I want the larger screen of the new one. I know I felt it. I've preferred the squared off design instead of the curvier one. Yet for what it does, for what iPads can do for us, that ninth generation iPad, well, no, it's more than appealing. I think it's pretty compelling. While I'm talking prices, let me remind you, because this is crucial, all of these prices are like starting ones. The cost goes up if you want more storage space, and it goes up a lot if you want an iPad that has a cellular connection, if you want it to be able to connect, just keep connecting to the internet the way your iPhone does, and even more if you want all of the above. But actually, previously I've quite worried about the storage space issue. Apple's still a bit miserly with storage space, but it did used to be worse. It used to be that you got so little space in the starting price model that you really didn't have a choice. I thought you had to go up a level or you'd suffer. It's like it's torture. Well, sometimes it did feel like torture. Now, whether or not you buy a 9th or a 10th generation iPad, well, the starting one has 64 gigabytes. I realize I find it very hard to have a feel for what that actually means in use, but I know this from experience. 64 gigabytes, you're going to be at least okay. When you only got 32 gigabytes, you definitely won't. Also on price, that new Magic Keyboard Folio for iPad, only for the new one, costs $249 or £279, and that's one of Apple's prices where I don't care what your budget is, you kind of have to pause to wince a bit. But the Magic Keyboard for the 11-inch iPad Pro that I have cost me more than that, and it's so good. I mean, it's so very good that really the only time I feel regret and pain is when I tell you the price. Although actually I realise the price I paid is so much that I've kind of blanked it from my head. So I had to go look it up online to just try to tell you, and I can't, because now the current one is much more than I paid. It's now £319 in the UK. I wish I could remember what I paid, but I think the new one is a considerable amount more than I paid, and it's yet another reason to wonder what is going on in my country. For completeness, the new 11-inch iPad Pro starts from $799 or £899, and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is from $1,099 or £1,249. Like I say, the Pro models will last you longer, especially now that they're on the M2 processors, which are the same as on a Mac, actually. So you can buy the Pro for their various extra capabilities, for the probable extra long life, or you can buy the regular iPad. Yeah, except there is this one other thing that can seriously affect your choice of iPad. Was that a nice dramatic pause? Look, so there's a regular iPad, right? And then there's the iPad Pro, and they're like the bottom and the top of the range. So naturally, there's a middle. Two middles, in fact. One we can just get rid of quite quickly. It's the iPad Mini. That used to be the smaller, cheaper iPad for people who didn't have the budget for a regular one, or just who wanted the smaller size. Most of those days are gone. Now the iPad Mini, well, it's still smaller, which is very attractive. It's a lot more capable, which is very attractive, but it's also a lot more expensive. You no longer buy it instead of a regular iPad. You buy it because you want that size and you want those capabilities, and you pay for wanting them. But then there is the iPad Air. It's the same size of case of chassis-ish as the regular iPad, and pretty much the same as the 11-inch iPad Pro, pretty much. It has the M1 processor in it at the moment. It works with the same Magic Keyboard as the iPad Pro, and it starts from $599 or £669. Over and over, right, Apple brings out new versions of some iPad models, never all at the same time, and the capabilities, they kind of shuffle about in the range. I mean, at times, it's been the mid-range iPad Air that's actually, in every sense, pretty much seriously better than the more expensive 11-inch iPad Pro, for instance. And there have been times when the base model, the regular iPad, has been upgraded enough that it's kind of, knocking at the door of the iPad Air. And actually, I think we're in one of those times now. Check the links below descriptions, because I have a whole 58 keys on how to find the right iPad for your needs and your budget at any time, whether Apple's brought out new or not. And in that, I actually argue quite forcibly, in fact, that the iPad Air is always the sweet spot in the range. I argue in that video that it's the best mix of price and features, and I still think it is. But the new 10th generation iPad is close, certainly in price. If you know, if you really know what you'll use your iPad for, then I suggest that you need to be looking at the features and the price of just two types of iPad, which is either the regular iPad and the iPad Air, or the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. I did know what I would use my iPad for. I've been using them for years. I was really comfortable with what I needed. So in 2021, I made the decision. I went for an 11-inch iPad Pro, partly because I couldn't afford a 12.9-inch one, but also because I very specifically wanted something that could run my whole writing business on for years and years, if necessary. In 2022, I think I'd have gone for an iPad Air instead, because of the way they shuffle about. If you don't know what you're going to use your iPad for, and actually, unless you've used one, I'm not sure how much you can tell, not really. Well, then I'm actually going to say you should strongly consider the old 9th generation iPad. It's very good, and it is the cheapest. Let's see now. iPad Air, iPad Mini, including the old 9th generation, the new 10th generation model of iPad. Apple today sells 6 varieties of iPad. All of them come in either a Wi-Fi only or a Wi-Fi and cellular version. All of them have different options for storage, and they all come in at least 2 colors. I worked this out. Right now, today, Apple stocks 38 different iPads. Fortunately, there isn't actually a bad one in the whole. Well, the yellow version of the 10th generation iPad, that's very, very yellow. Listen, that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now, take care of yourself, write more, and I'll see you soon.